Hey guys, Mr. Jaeger here, and welcome back to World of Tanks. It's been a while, hasn't it? I wouldn't really think I was going to be saying that particular phrase for a while or at all, but I've recently found, like this is by no means confirming that I am back in World of Tanks and doing regular content, but I'm gonna just give this game one last sort of hurrah. Maybe have a little couple full games. Maybe just play this as fairly casual as possible, rather than what I used to do. And apologies also for the lack of variety on my channel as of late. There's a lot of personal things going on at the moment that are up in the air, and unfortunately I don't really want to make any kind of statement slash update until everything's kind of set in stone. So, yeah, apologies on that one. But regardless, World of Tanks, yes. So if you're new to the channel, basically World of Tanks was my first thing, was the actually original thing that allowed me to get into the YouTubing game. It was when I was in college. I'd sort of signed up with an account back in 2011. Didn't really do much with the game because I wasn't really, at that time, I wasn't really that interested in it. But then as I saw more and more content, I thought, oh, I like this. And I also noticed I had the account still. I remembered the password somehow. And I basically thought, well, rather than just play it on my own and do nothing, I thought maybe I could do something with this and perhaps chronicle my story going up through the ranks and, you know, going for my objective, which, you know, I think I even listed in the first videos or so when this game was really new, about, like, playing with, you know, trying to, well, my goal of YouTube was get up to the top of the tanks text tree, and if I ever became famous, get to play in a platoon with the mighty Jingles. It was like, you know, glorious high ambition goal. I mean, it's quite high goals. I mean, he is still very famous. He hasn't lost anything. In fact, he's jumped onto other stuff now, which is quite nice. But no, like, in terms of gameplay, those were my lofty goals. But the main thing with my YouTube channel was all about trying to rise through the ranks in World of Tanks and get up to the top tiers, which I did achieve. Actually, I got to my first tier 10 was the E100. Yes, I know. Not the greatest of lofty goals, I admit, but at the time I thought the E100 was alright. It wasn't that great, wasn't that bad. It was a meh, but it was still a good meh. Personally, loved the E75. That was my objective. It turned out the objective I actually wanted all along. Beautiful thing. But then my second was a Leopard 1, so you could say I redeemed myself. And then I got a Jaeger as my third tier 10. And then I basically, you know, went through the list of various sort of tanks and all that jazz. But no, so basically, I played through World of Tanks and I did the thing. I made videos about my various progressions with the tanks, including, like, for example, when I used to get a certain gun caliber size that was larger, or the largest one I had, for argument's sake, I would make videos saying such and such millimeters worth of gun. Or, you know, even 122 millimeters worth of gun. And, you know, it was little sort of silly things like that. But, you know, over the course of the last few years, World of Tanks began to do some really annoying things, like the over-spamming of premium vehicles, or the changing of the matchmaker so that it completely screwed up how games were, and instead of it being fun and entertaining, it just made it more and more annoying. And then Wargaming decided to change artillery, which initially I thought was going to be a good thing. I was wrong. Very wrong, and it basically made any kind of artillery game, any kind of SPG scumbagger, to be the most hated of all things. Like, they're not as bad, but it was worse. I don't know how you made it worse, Wargaming, but you did, and it's impressive on the level of ineptitude, regardless of that. So, you know, the changes were felt and hated were being implemented, and then of course Wargaming had changed more, you know, had started taking away vehicles in terms of gameplay balance. A big thing that pissed me off was the removal of the BL-10 from the ISU. That made me sell that thing instantly, because it's like, nope, you take away my gun, I take away your tank. I no longer use that thing, out of spite. And even the Object 704, which is still unlocked in research tree, I refuse to play it because it's not going to be the same. It's going to be like, well, it's the same tank as the other tank, it's just slightly better. So yeah, no, I do not respect that thing anymore. But anyway, so World of Tanks, more positive things. I'm going to try and think of more positive things. But okay, one last slightly negative thing, and to explain why I didn't do anything during Christmas, and also the reason why for the first time in my entire World of Tanks career I ignored the winter call to get the free garage slot, which was the ISA 3 autoloader buff, and then the gambling system regarding to that. Now, I know that it's now January, we're nearing February, fucking hell already, and I know that it's already come and gone, and the controversy around that probably has died down, but it is something that still needs to be talked about, with any game, in fact, that decides it. And I know that there are probably people out there who are beginning to become apathetic to it, people who just thinking, oh, for God's sake, it's the same thing again and again. That's because it's important. It's because it's very important. It's very serious, because this kind of stuff is affecting not only people's lives, it's affecting people's, jobs, monetary, it's causing families to break up, it's causing problems to arise, and none of it is being regulated. None of it is being challenged. None of it is really being stopped in prime aspect. You've got games like Call of Duty, World War II, and Black Ops 4 throwing gambling and microtransactions into a premium experience you've already spent loads of money for. You've got issues with Ubisoft making so many booster packs and many DLCs and many updates and many buffs and other shit in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. You've got Battlefield EA, and EA, I don't need to say anything else. No, I do. Sense of pride and accomplishment. That's all I need to say on EA. So you've got all of these things, and then Wargaming throws its tendril hooks into the boat with this buffed IS-3A, a premium auto-loading or rapid reloading heavy tank, that then they stick into a gambling system without the option to get the vehicle separately. That's just ridiculous. It's also a clear sign of what kind of ambitions Wargaming wanted to have for its player base. And unfortunately, loads of people still lapped it up, resulting in lots of money being made for them. So, during that particular time, I was potentially going to jump in and play, but when I heard about what Wargaming was doing, I just outright refused. I had no interest nor any respect for any of that, so I thought no. So, nope, not playing this game until it's off and I can actually play it as it used to be, as it was meant to be. And here we are. Okay, so negative stuff over. That's all the negative bits out the way. For anyone who's stayed here, thank you very much for doing so. I do immensely appreciate it. So, what we're going to do now? Well, we're going to have a few gameplay videos of me talking about the state of World of Tanks, or at least talk about a few things, maybe mention here or there how the replays are going. But still, don't expect good replays, I'll be honest with you. I've played a few games, I played with some tanks, I did some stuff, not by any expert means, but I think I did better than most, in certain regards. So, I'll see you there. And we're back. We're playing on... This was actually the first game I had in God knows how long. Probably have to turn down the sound for this, but still. But no, this was the first game I played in World of Tanks. This is on Abbey, and it is a standard match engagement. I am driving the Panther tank with the L100 gun, fully upgraded, just really terrible. No, it's not a terrible tank. Truth be told, it's actually quite a decent medium tank. The issue is, of course, you've only got a 75mm gun. It does have, I believe, 198 pen, unless they've changed the stats on that. And it does have a decent mobility. Obviously, there are other tier 7 medium tanks that are mobile. I was paying a bit too much attention coming up towards the left-hand side. And we're pushing the left-hand flank. Unfortunately for us, though, there is the issue of the Sture Mill on the right-hand side that hasn't got much of any protection. But at this point, I thought, well, look, if we're going to lemming train, we might as well lemming train our way through the left flank. So, the enemy team has brought to the table an Object 257, T-54, Stilitzwagen 103, and some new Polish tanks, which I'm not entirely sure. 53 TP. This was actually my first, as I said, my first engagement with them, so I had no idea what to expect from these particular vehicles. So, we're kind of sheepishly pushing along. The T-54 comes up on my left side. FCM T-50 ton is pushing up. T-54 comes along, and the T-54, E1 decides to pop a few shells in. I decide to take advantage of him shooting, get a nice shot, aiming on the track. Unfortunately, don't destroy it. I load one or a couple premiums just to guarantee the kill, and bop, just as the 50T comes along, so I kill myself a tier 9 tank. Not bad for my initial engagement. Then two vehicles come along, the Comet and this 53 TP, and also a new vehicle, the P43 TER. I've no idea what that is. I'm like, okay, well, you're a new tank. You're in my way. You're going to die. As we begin to push quite strongly on the left tank with the Conqueror, the SU-152, and Jaeger 88, we begin to push up fairly aggressively towards the P-43. I kind of do a bit of a reckless push. I take a shot from the P-43 that was probably intended for the FCM, though luckily, well, I do unfortunately still take a bit of damage there. But I get another shot in, another lucky shot. I honestly thought I was going to hit the FCM. It does seem to want to try and go all out to try and get shots in. Trying to negotiate my way through. We all do the stereotypical, do the Nemo Seagull mine. Thank you, Mr. IS2, for slowing me down. Really appreciate it. And at this point, I couldn't quite get a decent bead on to get a shot in for that thing. Loads of other tanks were there. And by the time I finally get around the corner, everyone has gotten the shot in and killed the vehicle. Unfortunately, though, for the rest of the game, we're losing the right-handed flank. Studitzwagen, supported by another vehicle, and Scorpion G are pushing the right flank. Unfortunately, the Patton and all that guys have just been taken out. And any second now, boom, there you go. 59 Patton does the stereotypical player gets aggressive, dies, then blames team. I push aggressively down to the left, noticing the IKV and the SU-100M1, and I basically move to try and do a bit of aggressive scouting to try and figure out where I'm going. Again, not the most intelligent, because obviously now I'm spotted. I know I'm spotted, and the enemy has artillery. What do you think is going to happen? Oh, hello, there's a target. I'm starting moving up. Other vehicles get close to me. And wait for it. There's the artillery. Nice little slammeroony. And artillery luckily missed out on that one. I bounce a shot from the Object 257, but my crew are all stunned, so I'm sort of incapacitated for a while. I see an FV. I make a mistake here. I try and like angle the shot, and I spend a bit too much time focusing on the F1207, resulting in my sad death. But that said, that is not the end of the game. So the Jaeger 258. The Jaeger 258, well, 257 knocks out the Jaeger 88. The Conqueror sort of puts himself in a dangerous position because there are other vehicles there. It's not looking too good for the game. The FCM 50-ton was trying to push. The T-54 comes back to try and support. Object 704 is pushing. FCM 50-ton, being hyper-aggressive, gets punished for it, is now backing off towards the Conqueror tank in hopes to try and get support, rather than focusing on the tank that's ahead of him, slowly sort of panic reversing. You can always tell because the turret always twitches around a bit as the player tries to turn around to see if there's there. So Conqueror takes out the SU-100, who tries to go around for the kill, but unfortunately, well, neither of those tanks survive because the SU-152, like a pro, comes in and saves the FCM 50-ton. And at this point, the SU-152 is now dueling with the Scorpion G. Scorpion G gets a shot on him, and unfortunately for the SU-152, he fires and just about misses, unfortunately, resulting in the the gun not hitting and connecting, and regretfully losing out on a kill, getting killed by the Scorpion G. And regretfully, the SU-152's gun has cost him his life, but it's a good gun. If you're going to grind the SU-152, grind that gun. The enemy's T-43 decides to commit suicide via drowning. The FCT finally gets punished for all that aggressive behavior and gets shot. And I'm like, to the SU-152, you know, it sucks, but it's a good gun for the grind. And the Conqueror tries to sort of move into position to try and do an aggressive play on the Object 257. And the Scorpion G is in position. Scorpion G gets a good shot into the side, but unfortunately takes a shot from the Conqueror. All the other tanks are beginning to surround it. Object 257 starts taking hits from the artillery. And the IS-2, who spent most of the game not really doing anything, finally comes back around to say hello. Scorpion G gets knocked out. Conqueror tanks goes for the charge. Unfortunately, no, not really able to do anything. 257 comes in. Object 704 almost gets the shot. And just before the... oh, it gets a low roll, unfortunately. I think that was quite a low roll, because I think I've just got the... yeah, the 704. Like, fuck off! Yep. Yep, that's the wonders of the SU line, is that you either have a shot that doesn't connect, a shot that doesn't pen, or a shot that does low damage. Take your pick. So that was my first ever game back in World of Tanks. Not a great one. Obviously didn't make that the fairy tale remembrance game where I somehow conquer the entire thing, but I feel I made a decent effort charging through. So now we'll take you to another game. And we're in for the second replay with us being on Westfield. I'm in my SU-152, and I am driving. Well, I've actually luckily spawned not only at the top of the hill, but also right next to the bushes where I can camp. Lovely. And I am, of course, using the Derp 152mm howitzer, which is the only gun you really need to use on the SU-152. I mean, the 122s, you know, have a faster rate of fire and, yes, have better pen, but only up to 175, making you fairly useless in most engagements after tier 7. Whereas this 152 still does a shitload of damage to any vehicle that it hits. Obviously with high explosive, I'll add. So, whilst we're on this particular early stage, not as long as going to happen, so I wanted to have a quick talk about premium ammo that Wargaming is planning to change. So Wargaming is intending on changing the premium ammunition in World of Tanks so that instead of it being the same damage but higher pen, they're reducing the amount of damage it costs, how much damage you get for firing a premium ammunition on an enemy target in a bid to try and reduce the the gold spam that currently affects World of Tanks players at the moment, which, personally speaking, I think would be a good idea, but I think there's some other things that could be done. But before we get on with that, a Tiger P decides to show up in the village, and I almost have a chance to shoot him, but unfortunately the Tiger P decides to back off in a bid to try and lure shots. He decides to go forwards once again. I pop a shot thinking that he's going to be rolling across the front, but unfortunately for us, he does not get the kill. Unfortunately, though, everyone else is getting wiped the floor off. At this point, I tell the IS tank to withdraw, so I can hopefully get a shot on the enemy IS, but he decides not to, because, you know, logic. But anyway, going back to the sort of the gameplay aspects, I think also not changing the, lowering the premium pen on things would be useful, but I also think changing the wake points to make them more a viable target may also benefit us. Anyway, so the Tiger P, going back to him, has decided to become a little bit more brave. He decides to push, and I remind him never to push ever again, with a nice side shot to the Tiger P, getting a nice 500 damage shot, killing him instantly, which is lovely. By this point of the game, our heavy tanks have done enough damage to push onto the other side of the hill, reducing the enemy's ability to fight to bugger all, and hopefully giving us the opportunity to get potentially a kill, or at least another shot in damage. And unfortunately for us, though, not as able, because unfortunately this particular vehicle is not the best when it comes to climbing up hills. It's not really liking the whole having to climb a hill thing. But unfortunately for us, on the zero line, if you notice as well, enemy medium tanks and light tanks have been pushing up and have surrounded one of the Stridswagens and knocked him out. And unfortunately, that Stridswagen is dead, and there's only one Stridswagen left to defend the base. I make a bit of a mistake and pause to try and shoot the Scorpion. I kind of tunneled a bit on the Scorpion at this point because, you know, derp gun, not much pen, but the Scorp has not much armor. You can see what I was thinking. But at this point, I noticed just how bad it is on the zero front and decide to instead forgo that and start rushing towards the zero line to try and help protect it. Luckily for us, the enemy, our artillery takes out their 1375. A Scorpion G gets completely obliterated, and I get spotted for the first time in this game. I arrive just a tad too late to save the Stridswagen, which really sucks. I take my time taking the aim shot. Artillery pops a shot against the A50, but I end up getting the kill. It's only 91 damage, kind of sucks. But regardless, we are able to eliminate the potential threat to the zero flank. At this point, I apologize to the Stridswagen for failing to get to him in time. However, I do thank him for holding the zero line, because it is quite an important line. Medium tanks in the past have been able to completely turn the game around just by knocking out everyone on the rear line and capturing the enemy base. At this point, Rheinmetall Borsig and what's left of the enemy artillery decides to make a last stand in the area, but obviously won't last long. Artillery making sure of it in some points. And so at this point, now all we're waiting for is a Indian Panzer to try and see where he's going to go. I initially think he's going to be camping along the K1, K4 line, as there's a whole bunch of trees that you can hide. But instead, the Indian Panzer had shifted position, and as I'm trying to reverse to get a better line of sight in case he gets spotted along the K5, I'm initially thinking he's going up further, when I realise he actually hasn't made it that far, and I decide quickly to try and pop a shot, and bam, right into the back of his turret, buggering up any hopes of possibilities of him aiming, or anyone being around there without having a severe headache. I'm able to knock him out and finish him off, well, nearly finish him off, where the Scorpion G gets the kill. So, pretty good game. Again, nothing immensely special, but at the same time, still just as good. So, without further ado, we're now going to go to the last game of our little collection. So, we're back on our third and final game, and I'm on Westfield as Tier 4 in my favourite Tier 4 vehicle, the Hetzer. Absolutely gorgeous machine, firing using the L48 cannon. Most of the players who use this tank often use it with the 105 Derp, but I've found rate of fire and penetration is a much more enjoyable DPS. And there, if you see in the background or in front of us, is the T50-2, a very old classic vehicle, and I make a bit of a mistake. Apologies to the Keho. He decided to stay there for a very long time, not entirely sure why he does. But this particular map is a bit of a clusterfuck. I try and get like some kind of shots into what I thought was the ELC trying to make a push. Unfortunately, he didn't quite make the push that I wanted. I try and shift into position, and accuracy is not great, taking a bit too much time to get there, a bit frustratingly. I try and pop some shots to try and have a go at this Prudel tank, which I think is just a Polish version of a Panther. Not really getting much of a sightline to see stuff. I try and pop some kind of engagement, being a bit hyper-aggressive there. Realizing I'm not really able to get any kind of shots in, I see an enemy Stiritzwagen, or Struv. I fire, the shell goes low. Of course his doesn't. I fire again, my shell decides to become a plant, and implant itself into the ground. Little bastard thing. Anyway, so I try and get another shot in. Side turret, no, backs off. Okay, well, clearly I'm not doing anything useful here, I think, so I decide, well, let's try and push up towards the little berm, trying to figure out which line to go towards it. The game is kind of 50-50 at this moment. We did lose a vehicle to the Type 64, and I spot an M5. M5! A glorious M5 at that. More in the terms of targets to be shot at, and boop! There goes an M5. KV220 noticing me a little bit frighteningly, but we are beginning to lose out a bit on kills. The enemy have got 2 more kills to our, well, 2 more kills at the moment, more than we have. I'm keeping an ever watchful eye on our rear. Lux decides to pop a few shots across, and I begin to turn around, determination to try and get a shot in. Takes time. See if I can get a quick cheeky shot into the cupola. Aims, and no, not quite. And the vehicle blows up before I get a chance to really do anything. Thank you very much. So we begin to take fire from everyone else. I'm fully aware that I'm spotted. I fire against the Type 64 and luckily get a decent shot in. And then I see the Type 64 is trying to do the same thing again. So I decide to repay his determination to get killed by getting him killed. At this point I notice the AMX-40 and my determination to avoid, well, my determination to avoid the temptation to shoot him is apparent. I was determined to not become baited into that. But this P2640 decides to appear, so I think, well, if you're not paying attention, one in your rear end, and someone decides to take the kill. Thank you very much, T67. So anyway, at this point of the game, we are now more or less on the victory curb. It's still 50-50. This is low tier, don't forget. Everything can happen in like a matter of seconds. So I decide to be fairly aggressive and push across towards the other side of the line. I roll across to the left, turn around in a determination to get a kill, but the T67 decides to take yet another kill, which is a bit annoying. At this point, our tank for some reason gets very slow. I don't know whether it's because of the terrain we were on or because the acceleration factor wasn't great, but it just slowed right the hell down. And I was very conscious of the whole Stug 3G being camping in the corner there because he was quite quite an obvious threat, and I didn't know whether he had the L70 gun or whether he had the 105 gun. Now, this, you could argue, is where my intelligence decides to fly away, because obviously there is, tanks, there are big guns, and I wanted to, and I was a bit greedy, and I kind of got paid the price for it. I got too close to another vehicle, artillery pops a shot, and I rather foolishly die. I thought, well, yeah, you do stupid shit, expect to get shot. And I didn't actually stay around to watch the end of this battle, because basically it kind of looked like the game was going to turn to shit for the remaining players. But luckily for us, we did win. Again, though, didn't really earn a lot of experience. The T-67, though, had a monster game. Congratulations to him. Popped a few kills. I'm not... A slightly salty side of me would say he took a few of my kills, but, apart from that, good game regardless. And yeah, so now we're going to take you now back to the... So, there you guys have it. We've got a few replays done. Not stellar gameplay, obviously. I'll be honest with you, I'll always say this. I'm not one of those players who can, jump into any tank and master it. I have my preferences. I'm also, I would say, better than average. I make stupid decisions, I would say. I make some flaws, but I also know, in certain regards, what to do in certain situations and how to push out and whatever. But for my first few games back in World of Tanks, it felt nice. I also fully realized at the time I was playing most of these games, barring the second video, it was mostly at night, with 11 o'clock at night. So obviously not the optimal time to test whether this game is still good, but not regardless, it was enjoyable. And I still got to have some somewhat decent games, and I just enjoyed it for the first time in quite a while, which was nice. Got to smack a few things, got to have that money shot. So yeah, I do appreciate that. And again, this game has a future. Obviously, there is the issues that we are aware of. I say issues. The whole changes of the premium ammunition, the whole roster changes, and how all that's going to be changed around. The matchmaker apparently is going to be changed so that they can remove that. Matchmaking, the template might potentially change. So again, there's good and bad things coming along. I hope, truth be told, that they just fix the premium ammunition issue, which in regards to having a weak point to focus on, rather than just, well, we changed the ammo, so now it's all fine again. It's no, if you could make tanks maybe slightly weaker, I know it would mean a whole rebalancing of certain things, but make it so that weak point aiming is a thing. That would make the tactical gameplay so much more enjoyable. And it will really show the difference between someone who just plays this game for fun and someone who's actually spent the time, energy, and effort to learn the tank, to learn how to deal with it, and learn how to enjoy it. And then that way you can actually enjoy having more of a balanced gameplay. Maybe also reducing the RNG from 25 to 15. That might also help, because it means then guns don't have ridiculous over-the-top explosions, where for argument's sake you fire and you get 2k damage, or an instant guarantee one-shot, and instead something which is a little bit more understandable, balanced, honest-to-God balanced. Not something that relies on you just spamming the gold, or spamming the heat, or spamming whatever kind of high damage with potential to go even higher sort of weapon would be. Then it would just make it more interesting, to make more tactical-based decisions. But anyway. So, yes, World of Tanks. I am back, in a sense, but not back in the old ways. I also might make a video talking about the new vehicles, because I am aware that there's Italians now, there's Polish, there's new Russian tanks as well, I think. Yes, the Object 227, or 277, which kind of looks a bit like a slightly better version of the T10. So, yeah, new goals, new things, same game. I'll catch you guys next time. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this kind of content, let me know in the comment section down below if you like me doing World of Tanks again. I also have played War Thunder a bit, and ironically, War Thunder is beginning to look somewhat more decent. I know I can't believe I've just said that, but still. Again, games have made mistakes, but I think they're evolving to deal decent stuff. So I will catch you guys in the next one. This is Mr. Jaeger signing out. Oh, I also almost forgot to mention, I will be live streaming this particular game at 7 p.m. GMT on Wednesday the 23rd, for anyone who's watching after this, or 1900 hours GMT on Wednesday the 23rd. So if you guys want to catch me playing some World of Tanks for the first time live streaming in quite some time, feel free to come check this out. Hope to see you there.